Hey everyone, Randy with Extreme Sandbox. Today we're going to do our Excavator 201 training. This is our next video in a series of videos we've done, so if you haven't seen the intro one about the basic controls, please reference that. Today we'll go over a little bit more advanced maneuvers such as trenching, we'll go over the undercarriage, driving, jump turns, things like that. So check this out. Before I get in the machine, I just want to go over the undercarriage on the excavator real quick. You'll notice that basically the front and back of the machine, the idlers are up front. This is they call them idlers, it's really just a smooth sprocket where that track goes over. The heart of the undercarriage is the drive motors or the sprocket in the back, okay? And that is in the back, and you can always tell because it's just a lot, you can see the motors, it's a lot bigger. Now, when you are digging with an excavator, generally you want to be digging over the idlers, and there's a couple reasons. One, that's more reinforced up front, so it's protecting your drive motors in the back, and if anything happens, you want to have that happen to the front over those idlers. The second piece is from a weight perspective. You have a big counterweight in the back of the excavator, well the drive motors add to that as well. That adds a lot of weight, so that's generally how you should be positioned. Okay, now let's get in the machine. Now again, today we are running a Komatsu PC210 excavator. Again, in the scheme of excavators, it's pretty well in the middle. You know, they make them much smaller, they make them much larger. The thing I tell any new operator, anyone training, an excavator generally is an excavator. The controls are all pretty similar, so if you can operate a mini, you can operate as large as they'll get. So don't worry too much about that. We are running an ISO control pattern. That's the standard. So if some people call them CAT controls. The other is SAE. I sometimes call it the farmer control pattern because whether John Deere, a lot of farmers operate like a backhoe control pattern. So I'm not going to go over again all the controls. All those are in our initial video, so that's the very base piece. The other thing I just want to mention up front, which I didn't outside, we've already done our pre-op inspection. It's obviously important to walk around your machine, check everything. And then we're in a controlled environment. So we are on our site, we know everything around here, so we've already got things marked to know where everything's at. So yeah, so let's get going with it. So I'm going to start safety lock lever over here, throttle it up. Now we've had some great comments on past videos we've done. Generally for driving, I have boom up, stick straight down. You know, some people recommend having everything curled in all the way, just so you're down low with it tucked in case there's overhead. The other piece we've mentioned, some people drive with that bucket higher in the air just so you can see things in front of you in case there was someone in front of you. So. Again, this works for me. Again, I don't think there's really a right or wrong, and feel free to comment if there's a certain way that you've learned how to do that. If you saw our original video, you know, it's our 101 training. It really dumbs it down to one move at a time. You know, so a lot of comments on that. You know, we deal with people who have never been in a machine before. So we always try and keep it as simple as possible so we're not overwhelming them. But as you get more and more practice, that's where you're going to start doing a little bit more advanced maneuvers with doing trenches and things like that. Now with that said, there is no video you're going to watch on YouTube. There is no class you're going to take that's going to teach you how to be an excellent operator overnight. It takes time. So probably my number one piece of advice I've given to every new operator, just get stick time. Go find some place where you can just dig, do trenches, backfill them. The more experience you get, the better. So with this, I'm just going to dig a little bit of a trench. Again, usually teeth 45 almost, you want to kind of pull that in, and you'll notice how you start getting better at doing multiple moves at the same time. So you're curling, doing it all. A couple of important things that I don't think were covered really well in the first. Your spoil pile, where you're dumping. Usually you want to be at least 2 feet away from your trench. That's for just trench safety there. So you want to have it far enough where it's not going to run a risk of kind of caving in your trench. So usually at least 2 feet away. The other piece, you should always, if it's anything more than 4 feet down, you know, for safety you should be having some kind of trench box or have the trench secured in some way, shape, or form there. Obviously you don't want anyone down into that trench. You know, here at our site, you know, we just dig in sand here, so we don't generally use trench boxes or anything like that. We're just practicing. But obviously, if you're doing this on an actual job site, you want to have safety in mind there. So the best way to do this for trenching, you're starting out. I think the key here is to show, and I see new operators, you're either digging or you're driving. You're not doing both. So a lot of times you'll either move feet for a new operator, tell them to take their feet off the controls off the track paddles in the center while they're digging. And then we're gonna dig the trench up to the tracks here, whatever distance we need, and then we'll move the entire machine. You gotta understand, in our site here, it's very sandy. We don't get the trench to hold very well. So after I do that, now it's a matter of just backing up. So you always turn, look where you're going, and then you back up 15, 20 feet or so, looking around you. Couple of things I think is really important here also when you're backing up or moving. It's very, very important to understand your machine and the size of it, basically. What people I think often don't understand is the counterweight. Is you're lined up with your tracks. When I swing this way, you're actually going to go over about 4 or 5 feet over the other side. So you'll see a lot of new operators on a job site scraping this, whether it's trees, you know, if there's a house or a building nearby, you obviously want to have enough clearance. Definitely for people, you know, look around. So just understand, you want to know your machine and how far it goes one way or the other. So now that I've backed up, I'm going to go right back at it again, generally trying to keep my teeth about 45. Added piece I was going to add today with you guys is frost. So what we have out here, we're in Minnesota right now. So it is the winter right now. We've kind of broken up a lot of it, but you'll see right now my teeth are actually catching under frost. For any of you that work in a northern climate, you know, digging through frost can be tough. Biggest thing we've learned out here is a lot of times trying to get underneath it. What I mean by that is if you can get one hole through, once you get broken through that frost layer, typically frost, you know, 2 feet down or so, once you can get one spot through it, I found it way more effective to chip out from underneath it and you're working your way back up instead of going from the top down. So that's the key, is in the beginning, just trying to get through the initial, because you will have to attack it from the top. But once you get through that, then I'm just using my teeth to kind of chip away layers on this, and you'll see it'll actually, if you're not careful, it'll pick up the whole back of the machine. So that's where you just want to be really careful. Okay. Now again, you've noticed I've been over my idlers the whole time. That's obviously, again, the preferred way to dig with the machine. So want to go over a little bit on traveling with it. So probably the biggest thing, and you know what, I'm going to back up just a little bit. So I'm looking where I'm going. So there's an item that we call jump turns. Actually, I've heard different people call it different things. I call them jump turns. And that's really a way to, you know, one way to turn, quite obviously, is with your track. So let's say if I go opposite, you know, I can just go all the way one way or all the way the other. Challenge with this is you're going to move a lot of material because you got your entire undercarriage just pushing sand or whatever you're on one way or the other. So sometimes just to get your front, if you need to change your front of your tracks going a different direction, you can do a jump turn. This is not, again, I'm definitely not an expert or really great at this, but I'll show you what I've learned. Generally, you're putting your boom flat on the ground like that, and then you'll see this lifts up your entire machine, just like that. And then it's really kind of simple. And what I mean by that is what I'm going to do is with my tracks, you want to turn your tracks the direction you're trying to go. So if I'm trying to get my front here to aim to the left, that means I'm going to be pushing my right track forward and I'm going to be pulling back on my left. The counterintuitive part is your swing. So with my left there, I'm actually going to go away from the direction I'm going. So if I want the undercarriage to go left, I'm actually going to be going to the right with this. So it kind of looks a little bit like this, and I always recommend starting slow on this, but I start going like that, and usually it's about 90 degrees or so. So right about there. Bring that boom back down gently like that. And there I'm lined up the other direction. And you'll notice I haven't moved as much material there. And then same thing, if I want to go back to the right here, I'm going to put this back down, boom down flat. Now I want my undercarriage to go to the right, so that means I'll be going opposite with this, but my swing will be going the opposite direction, okay? So, like this. Like that. Bring that down. Boom back up, and I'm good. Now, while we're doing that, the couple things I like to show operators, you know, it's really important to keep your undercarriage clean on the machine. And there's one way to do that as well. So at the end of the day here, one of the easiest things to do is, again, the boom will lift up the entire machine. So if you just bring it up on one side, like this, I can take my right track. Sometimes I bump up my speed. This is a great way to start clearing out your tracks, so you don't have to completely shovel everything out of the machine. So I go one way, go to the other side. Okay. Now I think with doing any of that, or especially with the jump turns, you know, as far as a recommendation, you know, while I do think that saves a little bit on your undercarriage and disturbing the ground, probably not great for your swing motors on there, but again, I think you do it in a balanced environment. So you're not doing it all the time. I think there's a time and place when you need to turn your undercarriage all the way around. It's going to be a lot better than turning those tracks completely the other way. So what I want to cover here, really using the machine, again, you've noticed how the boom can lift everything. Use that to your advantage. So one of the pieces here is crossing a trench or a valley, something like that. I don't have a huge valley here at our sandbox site. I'm going to use a little bit of a trench, so I'm going to exaggerate it here a little bit, so bear with me, but I'm going to go over an edge here, and the concept's the same. The first thing I'll tell you is anytime you're using an excavator to cross a trench, a valley, whatever, first and foremost, understand how long your undercarriage is. I can speak from personal experience. What you don't want to be is tracking over one, and because you can't see your back, is having that back drop down too early. So it's really important that you understand you can't cross an area that's too wide. But something like this trench here, this is 4 or 5 feet around. So all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna line up to go over the edge here a little bit, just because I've got my spoil piles there from earlier. But again, the concept's the same. You're gonna drive right to the very edge. So you can even have a track hanging over a little bit. Again, understand your machine's long enough that you don't have to worry about falling into this thing if you're just hanging over a little bit. Then it's just a matter of extending. You always want to have that stick as far reach out as you can get. And then you're putting your boom, again, different strategies here. I like to keep my bucket flat. Some people actually use their teeth and have them down to kind of bear into it, you know, bite into it a little bit. But if I just do that, and I'm literally just lifting it up, now I've got my front end off. It's a combination where I'm gonna have to be pulling my boom up, stick in to kind of drag me across while going forward with my tracks. So if I start, it's a little bit managing my height. You'll see I'll go, all I'm trying to do is get my other tracks to the other side. Can't stress enough, don't go too far, because this is that point where you would fall in. Right now, I can see off my left corner, I see I'm on a solid base on the other side. Then I'm pulling up, I know I'm across it, I'm slowly swinging. Again, keeping your weight inside just in case. I see I'm clear, I'm crossing over the trench right now. And then you're doing a little bit of the opposite here. I'm gonna place my bucket flat, this time closer to me, because I'm gonna kind of try and push myself over. So same thing, I'm raising it up. Same concept where I'm gonna be pushing forward with it. And there we go. Once you're clear of it, spinning all the way back around. That's how you cross a trench safely. Okay, the final piece I want to cover is going up a hill. So we're going to track over here to a different area on our property so I can show you a little bit about tracking on a hill. Okay, so we've now tracked over to a hill on our site. Now I just want to go over going up and down some hills. So a couple of things with that undercarriage. Again, generally the motors are in the back. Now there's going to be two different schools of thought here on how to approach a hill and go up a hill. Generally, because that's your weight, I think it's better to spin the undercarriage around so your drive motors are actually going up. That has your weight then on the front of that machine, pulling it up a little bit. But there's some other thought I've heard different about what that does to the drive motors themselves, because you're actually pushing the track versus pulling it up. So I think you'll hear, again, I'd love to hear comments if you guys drive with your idlers up the hill or the idlers in the back. So. But I'm going to go ahead, again, we're going to do the same thing, do a jump turn here, because I've driven over forward, but I want to spin it around. So I'm going to raise that up, and then again, I'm just trying to spin that way. So we'll spin this thing all the way around. One way there. Same thing again, put it right out in front. Raise it up. Again, I'm still going the same direction. Oh. So now I'm lined up actually in reverse. The other thing I didn't cover, but it's drive motors. We looked at it from the outside. If you never know, you literally just glance out your machine. The drive motors are the bigger. You'll see, I can see a drive motor on the inside of my right track there. So that's one way too. If you don't, I mean, obviously you just touch your controls, you'll figure it out. But if not, you can look down. I can see all that. So now you want to use this excavator, the weight. So I'm going to go up. I'm trying to go in reverse here. So this, what's important here, using the weight of the machine. So I'm extending out. So I'm going to start going up. Now, once I start going up, there's a couple of things. I'm going to try and just use the weight alone to pull me up, keep me tracked. Again, I'm also in Minnesota. I'm dealing with snow here, so it's going to be a little bit slippery. But I'm going to have this down near the ground. You can bite into the ground as well. Depending on your job site, you may not want to disturb the ground here. So I don't necessarily want to tear up. We have grass up here on top, but if I have to, I'll be ready to go. So I'm going to slowly pull this up. And you can see right now, I'm going down with the boom. I'm keeping my center of gravity low, so I'm keeping that boom down, and I'm still going like that. You'll see I've almost lowered my boom all the way. I'm slowing it down. Now eventually I'm going to come over the edge here, and now I'm bringing that boom back up. Now I'm flat up here. Now again, you'll saw I made it all the way up to that thing without digging in. I mean, if I didn't care about the site here and didn't care about grass, the easier way to do that would have just been to bite my bucket right into the ground and just pull myself up. The other way you might see some people do it is you spin around. You can use the back of that to raise, kind of push you up the hill. You're raising it up. Again, I think that's the most ideal is the way I did it there. But there's, again, a lot of different thoughts on that. Now, I'm all the way up. Now going down. We're going to spin around, we're going to come down this hill. So you'll see what I can. Now same concept here is it's using your arm. So we're going to bring this thing down. Now the big piece here, and this kind of shows, a little bit going over how we went over the trench, you lift yourself. I'm going to use the bottom of that bucket so it's kind of flat, but you can actually go forward here a little bit, and actually eventually I'm looking, this is similar to crossing the trench. You'll see I'm dragging my front on there, but this is important too to understand what the back of your machine, where I'm at. So I can see out my window right about there. Now I see my front end's up. Now I'm just using that. I can slowly, instead of going over the edge, I'm slowly bringing myself down. So I'm controlling my descent here. Now I can either keep going like this and just sliding it. I'm going to keep going and just let it bring. It's a little bit of a steep incline here. But I can start. My tracks are almost all the way down. This is also important while you wear a seatbelt, so you don't end up through. So right now it looks like, bucket's still just dragging along the ground. There we go. So I've now made it down the hill. See my track path again. That was a fairly steep incline, but again, it's without minimal impact is all I had to do with that machine to really disturb the ground at least. So if you really have a really steep slope or a different configuration, use that bucket, you can pull yourself. Real quick on the parking, I've heard this too in comments. I park with the boom kind of up, stick straight down like this. If you're at a job site where you have someone coming in greasing the machine later, it is important sometimes to have this all having either completely laid out so it's low so they can get all the grease points on the machine. So again, different schools of thought on that. So okay everyone, so that's our Excavator 201 training. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Again, put in the comments below Love to hear any feedback, any tips, suggestions. Like we stated, I am not an expert in this. It's just kind of things we have learned on the job site. So again, would love to hear your comments. And if there's other videos you want to see, make sure you check out our Learn playlist. That's where we have a lot more how-to videos on how to operate wheel loader, bulldoze, or mini excavator, things like that. So thanks a lot for tuning in and have a great day.